back against the far right. My name's Kevin Courtney. I used to be Joint General Secretary of the National Education Union. I'm retired and I'm enjoying retirement, but spending some time volunteering to helping stand up to racism with some trades union liaison stuff. Got a fantastic panel of speakers who I am going to introduce later as we get to them, but from the TUC, from Unite the Union, from Unison the Union, and I presume that most of you are trades unionists. And if you're not, join a union, but the unions really matter in the fight against the far right. And what we want, we're going to have some fantastic contributions from the top, and I'm really pleased about the speakers that we've got. And then we're coming over to you. We want your insights, your thoughts on what we can do, what you can do better, what we can do to build the movement against the far right. We are pleased from Stand Up to Racism with the trades union engagement that we've had, especially since the far right riots in August. You know, the counter mobilization, many unions put out a call for their members to mobilize on those counter mobilizations that Stand Up to Racism was at the heart of in August, but unions really absolutely there. A very good union turnout, we thought, for the demonstration, the counter mobilization on October the 26th. We all know that the fight against the far right in this country, though, is not reduced to the fight against Tommy Robinson. It is also the fight against Farage and reform. We all know there are lots of things the trades union movement can do, from challenging the conditions in which racism grows, to educating its own activists to take on the arguments of the far right in the workplace, to promoting positive views of our migrant members, to the counter mobilizations against Tommy Robinson, to getting some of our activists to actually engage with the electoral stance that we intend to take of asking people to vote against reform, to register to vote and to use their vote and to vote against reform, not to vote for reform. So there are all sorts of ways that union members can take part in those sorts of fights. And I want to hear your views on that and how we best do it. We're going to have contributions of a maximum of 8 minutes from our three speakers on the top, and then I'm coming to you. I hope to have about as much time from the floor as from the top table. From the floor, I want to hear as many people as possible. So there's a maximum of 3 minutes. But if you want to make a point of 1 minute or a point of 2 minutes, that's really welcome. We want to get as many voices from the floor into this discussion as possible. Your views on what you can do, what the unions can do, how we can work together on this. We've built a Stand Up to Racism Trades Union network. We launched this, Kudsia and I chaired, I haven't introduced Kudsia, yes, but Kudsia and I chaired an online meeting together, 700 people at that. We've got WhatsApp groups set up in many unions, people talking about how to take forward their own unions campaigning on these issues. Your views about how to do that better, we would very much appreciate. So that's it from me. Our first speaker is the fantastic Kudsia Batool, who used to be a teacher, a primary teacher, and is now the head of Equalities for the Trades Union Congress. So over to you, Kudsia. Thank you very much. And give Kudsia a round of applause.
Thanks, Kevin. And also, you were my General Secretary when you were NUT, just saying. So I just want to say thanks for having me today. I'm not going to, because we're keeping it short, I'm not going to give a lot of preamble around context. We know what the context is. We've talked about it. Kev's just outlined it as well. But the fact is, this is a wake-up call. And it's a wake-up call, not just for activists, but for unions and political leaders, which is we can't ignore the far right and we can't ignore their increasing influence. You know, they've always been there. They've always been looming in the background, but it's a different beast at the minute to what, and we need to fight it differently. So, and we can't allow, Kev talks about a positive vision for migration. And I think that's really important because we can't allow hate to shape the political and social landscape. And that's a really important part. Everything the far right stands for is fundamentally opposed to what we stand for. Their values are against our values of solidarity, equality, and justice. And we have to remember that. So what can unions do? What is our role in fighting the far right? Well, we're uniquely positioned, actually, because Their agenda is divisive. Our agenda is not divisive. And we represent diverse communities. We organise in workplaces and we fight for fairness. And here's how we have to use that power effectively. And sorry, kids, I don't have a really easy answer. I don't have something you're going to take off the shelf. It's a lot of work and it's a lot of building blocks of the work that we do, that we've got to do more, bigger, faster. And that is, we've got to start with anti-racist political education. We have to inform as many people as we can about what is happening. We have to inform our reps, our activists, our union members, our colleagues, our comrades, our communities with good quality political education. And we've got to make it accessible and meet people where they are. And we have to embed anti-racism in every part of the work that we do. There's a lot of dialogue that goes around at the minute saying, how are we going to, how do we stop the far right? Well, actually, the far right, it's about racism. It's about lots of different levels of racism, but it's about racism. So we've got to up our anti-racist work, and we've got to do the things that we know unions are good at doing, but we've just got to do more of them and more effectively. And we've got to make sure our unions are bigger and diverse than they are currently, because that's how we fight that fight. We've got to provide regular training for union reps and members so that they can identify the far right in the workplaces. It's no secret the big vote that Reform had in the election. They didn't get the MPs, but they got they got 5 million votes and came second in lots and lots of places. And they're our colleagues, our comrades, our friends that are voting for them. So we've got to make sure that our reps in workplaces are tuned in and turned on to rooting out the far right when we can feel and see them organising. So we've got to train people to do that. And we have to actively recruit and empower underrepresented workers into our movement. We need more Black workers, more Asian workers, more migrant workers, more LGBT plus, disabled, women, young workers. We're not representative enough. We're better than we have been, and we're getting better, but we need to do even better. And then we need our unions to remove some of those structural barriers that stop members becoming leaders. So we need to see, exec members. We need to see branch representatives. We need all of that to happen. There's a really comprehensive bit of work we did with the Anti-Racism Task Force that has a manifesto and an action plan about the steps we need to do to take that. And if nothing else, go away from here, go back to your union and say, where are we on the Anti-Racism Manifesto? Where are we on the action plan? Because that has got all of this in it. Another thing I want to talk about that unions have to do is we have to build community solidarity. We have to do that. One of the most effective things that happened during the summer to challenge the far right was communities rising up to counter protest and push back the far right. And we have to do that. The only way we can do it is by building community links, strengthening coalitions with anti-racist organizations like Stand Up to Racism, but grassroots groups, cultural institutions, mosques, madrasas, gurdwaras, synagogues, etc., and making sure that we are rooting them out, not just in workplaces, but anywhere that our communities are represented in. We also need to show visible support for marginalized communities. Solidarity means solidarity, and we have to stand together. It can't just be, why aren't people turning out for this march? Why aren't people supporting this cause? We've got to make sure that when we're united against all forms of fascism. We're united against all forms of hate that appears, whatever that might look like. And that means turning up for our neighbors, turning up for our friends, turning up for other causes. And unions have got to get better and do more at their bread and butter, which is we need to demand more from employers. We need anti-racist policies in workplaces. We need employers deliver on pay equality because they're not at the minute. And we need more opportunities for Black and minority ethnic workers. And we need workplaces accountable. When people report in work that they're being targeted by hate, what are workplaces going to do about it? What are employers going to do about it? I'm not going to talk about structural racism. I talked about that a little bit. And one of the other things we need to do is we need to push and challenge the Labour Party. They're a really key partner in pushing back against the far right. If we can't work with the Labour Party to present a vision of for the working class that is positive, that is full of hope, that is an alternative to what the right wing are peddling, then we're really going to struggle. And to do that, we have to push Labour to undo 14 years of Conservative rule. We've got to hold Labour to its principles and push for bold action against reversing discriminatory legislation. So anti-migrant legislation needs to change. We need to tackle the issues that systemically, disproportionately impact Black people. So we need a really good quality Equality Act. So the Race and Disability Act is coming, and it's got to do what it says on the tin, which is make things better. And there are some really good things in there, and we have to make sure that the Labour Party deliver on them. We need to deliver transformative investment in working class communities. There's no sexy way of saying it, but we need better quality of life. And the way that we do that is investment. And we need two key things. And these are the last two things I'm going to talk about, Kevin. One is Labour announced the Employment Rights Bill a couple of weeks ago, and it's the most transformative piece of pro-worker agenda legislation that we've seen for a generation. Reform voted against it, by the way. Yeah. And we need to make sure that that agenda delivers in full for working people. Things like 0 hours contracts that lock Black workers, migrant workers, but also working class people in poverty have to go. Exploitative work has to go. Outsourcing has to go. These are the things that are going to improve the lives of people so that their streets feel different, so that their communities feel different. But none of that matters if we don't also expand public services and make public services better. If people's lives aren't going to feel better, then the appeal of the right wing is going to be there, and we need to expose it for the lie that it is. But we can only expose it if we can build an alternative, and public services are really key to that alternative. And we need to make sure that we present with Labour a clear and inclusive vision to help Labour counter the far right rhetoric, because we can't stand here 5 years being really worried about a reform victory. So, Kevin, that's what I've got to say.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. There's lots in what Kudsia said. Take away that message. Nigel Farage says he speaks to the working class. He voted against a ban on fire and rehire. He voted against a ban on 0 hours contracts. He doesn't speak for the working class. And I'd also like to thank Kudsia, and this is against the rules of the General Secretary's Club, but Paul Novak's made some fantastic speeches. The speech that he made at Congress last year that said the enemy of the British working class doesn't come in small boats, they come in private jets. I'd like to thank Kudsia for that speech. Yeah. And our next speaker from the top table, we had a fantastic message of support from Sharon Graham at the demonstration October the 26th. Siobahn Endean is the head of Equalities at Unite the Union. Thank you very much for being here, Siobahn, and thanks for the speech you're going to make.
I think I got the memo that we're going to be quick, so thank you very much. And thank you, Kudsia, and thank you also for all of the work that the TUC has done through the Anti-Racism Task Force in highlighting to unions the importance of us, because I think it's where we need to start, right? We need to actually look at our own organisations. Trade unions, you're quite right, Kudsia, are uniquely placed in having access to workplaces and members organised in workplaces where a lot of this fascist and racist and far-right narrative is emerging, and we need to empower our reps and our activists and our members to counter that. But I think we also need to look at our own organisations. We need to take a real look at Black leadership, at women's leadership, at disabled members' leadership. We need to ensure that our LGBT activists are able to get through to those leadership positions, because our fight against the far right will be led by our activists who experience discrimination and are in the best place to challenge it. So our role in the trade union movement, and we did a lot of work, I think, with the Stephen Lawrence Task Force in the TUC, and ensuring that every union had structures to empower our Black and Asian workers, but also all members who are experienced discrimination, because they have to be a fight, the leadership of the fight. But it is one fight and one union, a whole union fight. So wherever we organise in workplaces, within our communities, it's really critically important that our unions are looking at everything that we do. So ensuring that where we organise, we are making sure that we're organising the whole workplace, that whether it's one union workplace or a multi-union workplace, that we are reaching out to those workers who are the invisible workers, the occupational segregation that exists in our labour market, to ensure that our unions are representing underrepresented workers and ensuring that we're negotiating for them and they're joining the appropriate union. But also that we have that community activism. And some of the work that Unite does, we have a Unite Migrant Workers Education Project, which is meeting as we speak at the other end in our offices, where they come together and organise their own English as a second language classes, but also how they build their communities and empower those communities. And they've now, next week, we're organising the branch for domestic workers, and they're electing their branch secretary. And I'm ever so proud because it's mainly migrant domestic workers who have been rescued from those big embassies and diplomats' houses where they've been kept in slavery without their workers' visa, which allows them to escape. So that self-organisation and that empowerment has to be at the front of our attack on the far right. But I think we have to recognise, and that's why today is so important, is that it's not an organisational far right now. It's not, we can't just say it's the BNP. It absolutely has to be around a battle of ideas, because our members, we have to recognise that our members are coming through with memes that they've picked up, like support the winter fuel allowance, stop the boats. Where did that come from? Okay, and I've seen that from our union's members shared on social media. So they say you can't kill an idea, but we are going to have a very good go at it, because it's really important that our organisations, our trade unions are working together in our communities. And I think it is important that we're working through our trades councils, through our structures, to build that broadest based coalition of opposition to the far right. So doing our work in relation to hate crime in workplaces, making sure that misogyny becomes a hate crime at last, because we know the Andrew Tate message is getting through to young women, and we absolutely, and to young men, sorry, and we absolutely need to counter that. And so ensuring that we are tackling hate crime, negotiating dignity at work policies, ensuring that organisation of fascism cannot happen in our workplaces, but also within our communities, through our trades councils, making sure that we have deep embedded community organisation. We cannot go into a community one day and move on and leave the next. This is a lifetime commitment to this fight, and we were all going to be part of it. So our Unity Over Division programme of Education and Unite is about having those difficult, challenging conversations in the workplace, separating out the fact from fiction, making sure that our activists feel that confidence to tackle any kind of banter or discussion in the workplace, because it's critically important that we ensure that all of our members feel that sense of solidarity in the workplace. But then also having, in every region now, we are developing anti-fascist task forces, which brings together all of the different industrial sectors, but also the equality activists, to make sure that we're leading that change and leading that community belt organisation in every community where we are. So for me, it's critically important that we're working across the trade union movement, that the TUC is coming together with communities to make sure that we have got a long commitment to be in this fight. So thank you very much.
Siobahn, why don't you just say the name of that education programme that Unite's doing with its members at the Challenging Conversations one?
Yeah, Unity Over Division.
Unity Over
It's
Division.
very similar to the TUC one.
Yeah, and we know from direct evidence from the German unions, from IG Metall, they've got similar programmes that are developed in the same sort of way. Yeah. And where those programmes are run in factories in Germany, AFD votes are lower when the unions are doing that work than in the surrounding areas. So it does, you know, so it's worth hanging on to those sorts of ideas. Really pleased that Santa Racism has a weekly meeting at the moment online on a Friday morning with reps from the unions, reps from Friends of the Earth and others. And Siobahn is there as a regular attender from Unite. So we're really pleased about that. And another regular attender in that weekly meeting is our next speaker, Ameen Hadi, who is from the Unison Northwest Black Members Committee. So over to you, Ameen. Fantastic to have you here.
So this session is entitled Power in Our Unions, and I was remembering the fight that Paul Stevenson led and the Bristol bus boycott, because unfortunately he passed away earlier this month, a couple of weeks ago, and he led a fight to allow black workers to work on buses, with the opposition of the union at the time, TGWU, and it was a heroic fight that won at the time. He won actually on the day that Martin Luther King delivered the I'm a Dream speech. And it's worth remembering, I suppose, how far we've come as trade unions from that point. The other point that people always reference is the Dockers in 1968 marching for Enoch Powell and the Rivers Bud speech. But think where we are now, where every major trade union backed our counter-protest sanitation call against Tommy Robinson only last month. That's a significant thing. And I think there were over 100 trade union banners on that demonstration. And this is an important step forward that we made over the years. But obviously, being an activist, it's never enough. It's never enough. It's never big enough. It's never broad enough. And we have to discuss how we build a bigger movement. What arguments do we have to take on to take our movement forward even further? And, you know, I think when we're thinking about how we do these things, we have to think about some of the ideological arguments that go with it. I sometimes I kind of laugh or cry, I'm not sure which, when I hear Farage talk about two-tier policing. I think it's so ridiculous. How could anyone believe it? But then obviously people vote for Donald Trump. So then I'm brought back to a different world where actually these things unfortunately have to be challenged and taken seriously. Clearly, there isn't a two-tier policing. His imposition was somehow that the people that were rioting, burning down hostels, get a soft ride, a hard ride compared to those that are demonstrating for justice for Palestine or for those demonstrating against racism and fascism. We are not the same. We cannot be equated in any sphere of thinking. We are people standing up for equality and human rights. These people are trying to destroy and fill the world with hatred and are the opposite of what we want to achieve. And the fact that he can get away with saying it without being challenged is a worrying turn within British politics, isn't it? You have to make you think about what sort of world we're heading in, where people like Donald Trump and their supporters like Farage are getting more and more credence. And I was wondering, you know, listening to every day since the election, we've had the major news items on Trump. And I'm thinking, why is this? Why has this election generated even more interest than every previous election? And I think it's because they're trying to hammer home a point that somehow there is no alternative to this drift to the right, that somehow we're all on this train heading in that direction. And we have to make sure that we stand out against it. We have to make sure that actually we're not going to be bought in by those lies, that somehow there's such thing as two-tier policing, or somehow that Farage did his little attempt at his own kind of rivers of budge thing by making out that somehow these rioters were expressing some sort of genuine concern or discontent. I hear it time and time again, and unfortunately sometimes people in the trade union movement echo this thing, that somehow there's a white working class out there that exists, that doesn't include black or Asian people in the working class. They're only white workers who have a genuine fear about Muslims or Muslim men being paedophiles or all these lies that are told. You know, there's no credence to any of this. There's no higher proportion of Asian men that are paedophiles within society. Every study refutes that, yet they continue to peddle these things to create that certain image that to other group of people. I mean, the biggest form of othering at the moment, really, isn't it, is when you watch the news about Palestine, when thousands upon thousands of people can die in a genocide, and somehow they're not equated to anyone else's life that's dying. And they played this trick, or tried to play this trick during the Iraq and Afghan war as well, didn't they? That somehow their lives weren't the same as our lives, and therefore it didn't matter how many thousands died. There was just collateral damage in something. And if you start to accept that logic, then their lives aren't worth the same as ours, that somehow you're superior to them, that is the basis of which they spread Islamophobia and racism, which has grown and grown over the last 20 years. So we have to be able to take on those arguments, and we have to be able to argue them with our union members. We have to win the support of our members, not just so a few of us can take a banner to a demonstration in London, but we can start to educate our union members on a mass scale. When the last year, I cajoled, along with some people in the room here from Northwest TUC Black Workers Committee, we persuaded the Northwest TUC to have a conference about the rise of racism and Islamophobia, and obviously the attacks on refugees in terms of small boats and all the rest of it. And we did that because we were already concerned in the run-up to a general election about the increasing Islamophobia, the increasing demonisation of refugees, people seeking a better life. That's what we're talking about. Oh, fellow workers seeking a better life and the way they were being demonised. And people came to the conference and were willing to organise, you know, and we've done it again recently. Again, we've initiated something as a trade union movement, encouraged trade unions to come together, discuss how do we tackle these things. We have to revisit this time and time again. In fact, the demand of the event we had a few weeks ago is we need to do it more and more regularly, almost every year. We need to think about how we're doing those sort of things. And we need to think about how we involve wider layers of workers in this as well. We put on a film showing of Lo Capitano as Unison Black Workers Group. We invited other trade unions to come to it to learn about what sort of journey the refugees go on, what sort of lives they experience, that they decide to risk everything, even their own life, to try and cross the channel. We have to continuously think of different ways. We're sponsoring a Love Music and Racism event next month, our trade union branch, to make sure that we try and reach out to younger workers to involve them. We constantly have to think of ways to widen our appeal, but also to go back to our union branches and politicise them, argue with them about why we need more activity, because 20,000 isn't enough to see off Tommy Robinson, is it? We've got to be bigger. We've got to build wider networks of involvement. And the trade unions are a huge source of power. They're obviously a good source of money as well. We can get money out of them to do these things, but actually it builds them as well as us. Actually go hand in hand. Some of the best activists that I've recruited or been involved in our union, our current Unison Vice President was recruited off coming up a stand-up to racism March 1st, before she even became a rep, before she became the Vice President many years later. So actually there's a route into activism. Your best stewards, your best activists will be interested, want to know how they stand for Palestine, how they fight for anti-racism and anti-fascism today. So we have to fight together, because actually we want not just to take on the far right and defeat them. We want to fight for a better world. And actually those people in the trade union are the bedrock of that change we all want to see.
Oh, that was fantastic timing from Ameen, and I want to thank Ameen for being part of that Stand Up to Racism organising committee and the work he's just been describing, that work from below, from a black workers group and from the union branch. And I also just want to agree with what Ameen said about being selfish for the trades union movement. Young people outraged by racism, and that's a lot of them. Mobilizing them, they will be the best union activists for the future as well. So the work we're doing in building the anti-racist, anti-fascist movement can also directly build the strength of our union for the future. We've got about 24 minutes, I think. I'm going to stop at 2:08. We could have 8 people speaking for 3 minutes, or we can have 24 people for speaking for a minute. So make 1 point if you can. Don't make 10. So I'm just going to, I don't know. I'm not going to use any names. I'm going to take the black guy here.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Me, that's speaker.
Tell us your name when you.
My name is Daniel. The president currently lives Solidarity and also. I was invited. Sorry, using my.
Yeah,
I wonder what this thing was about. Yes, I could use my voice very loudly too, but I think it's very encouraging to hear from the speakers what they're doing around education. One of the things we're involved with is fighting for reparations for slavery, and education is a key part of it. And I think when we try to tackle racism, we've got to go to the roots of racism, which is the lies and the propaganda they spread about Africans being not intelligent, being not smart enough, being not fully human, and so on. And these are the lies we've got to counter. So our work in fighting for reparations is about education. And I've been fortunate to be invited to one of the regional meetings of Unison to do a presentation on reparation for slavery, which I think went down really well, and which is the work we hope to continue. And I hope to make links with some of the union leaders here, how we can extend that work, because most of the battle has been happening on the street so far, but we know that the institutional racism is what kills us, what harms us the most. and we need to take that fight right to the heart of government. And when Starmer says he will not apologize and they will not pay reparations, we know the battle we've got in our hands, and we can only depend on the trade unions to win that battle.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Look to the woman in the purple top, just behind you. Woman in the purple top here.
Hi, I just wanted to quickly plug the Stand Up to Racism union groups, the WhatsApp groups that were set up a little while ago. I think they're particularly useful for people who are much more isolated, not so many people there, not in London or Manchester, for example. So I'm from Portsmouth in Hampshire, and we had a lot of trouble in Hampshire and Dorset with the far right. That, you know, unfortunately they didn't get the message that it was supposed to stop in the summer. It's carried on, but one of the things we've been doing is trying to kind of link up with people in other parts of Hampshire, in Aldershot, which surprisingly has not actually been a great place for Stand Up to Racism so far, but we're trying to kind of link up with people and using this WhatsApp group has been very useful. So please, if you're not on your union's Stand Up to Racism WhatsApp group, do think about joining it, because either you can find help or you can offer help. So it's a mutual way of helping and getting involved with people around the country.
Brilliant. I'm in lots of those groups and I see them working in that sort of way. So thank you very much. I'm going to go to this guy here, and then I want to come to the person online who's got a hand up. Julie, she, Nottingham.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Kevin. My name's Sean Fennell. I'm a UCU member, a national executive member of UCU, and I work full time as an English teacher at City Islington College. What I want to do is just quickly run through, because a lot of people talk about education, the role of education, and particularly we as educators play in pushing back the far right tide, and something we have done this week. This week at my college, I work in a college in North London. 3 colleges merged many years ago. And we set up something called a themed learning week around the whole issue of celebrating multiculturalism. I've done it 1 or 2 times before, but this one undoubtedly was the best we've ever done. We had 52 different events spread right across, involving the performing arts. The business department put a brilliant thing on about busting the myths of immigration, about business and so on and so forth. The ESOL department met up with the drama students, and the drama students talked about verbatim theatre, and they listened to the stories of the migrants who were ESOL students, who then performed those experiences and so on. I could go on. There was a fantastic week right across the board. Why is it important? How did we start this? Well, we got a bunch of staff together and saying, look, what happened in June is completely unacceptable. This is something we have to take on inside our colleges. And that's precisely what we did. And it spread, and we got the management on board after a few pushes and shoves and so on. But I do think what Kevin and other people have said, and Ameen, etc., and others, there's clearly an argument, not just with our students, but obviously with the staff as well. Just because you're in an educational establishment like myself, which is a massive multicultural one, it doesn't mean to say some people. I've had arguments about people who voted who thought Trump was an excellent victory. Those arguments amongst our teachers, there are arguments amongst support staff and so on. So therefore, the event not only helped to make sure we got over 100 staff involved with this across the event, hundreds of students involved performing, dancing, and so on and so forth, but really start to shape the curriculum. That's the last point. It's not simply about the issue of racism. It's all about education as well, breaking down the barriers between business and art and science and biology and mathematics, and uniting those things to show that we can educate our colleagues, not just about racism, but also how to fight and celebrate multiculturalism, something which the far right really hate.
Brilliant. And I just want to say thank you to that speaker for, raising trades unionism, but using your work to do so in your case, as a lecturer, as a teacher. So I want to come to the person online if they still want to speak. Then I'm going to go to Mr. David Denny, and then I'm going to take another, then I'm going to look for more hands. I'll look for some hands over here at that point. So can we get the
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Julie.
You're going all quiet, yes. I'm based in Nottingham and I'm a member of the PCS union. From the 4th of April 2024, there was changes to the immigration rules, and the minimum salary threshold for the skilled worker visa increased to £38,700. Now, there are many civil service workers who are on quite a bit less than that. And there are civil service employees, some of them who actually have a skilled worker visa, who are going to be impacted by these changes. I mean, it's just scapegoating migrant workers as part of the wider scapegoating of immigrants. And it's also it's for workers wherever the base who are on a skilled worker visa. It's about increasing the scapegoating, and PCS Union is supporting members that are affected by this and helping them raise it with MPs. And we're going to be asking all members to get involved in this campaign to support their colleagues as well by emailing politicians. And we need to put pressure on this for this to be raised in Parliament. And just to add, all trade unions, and whether people are unorganised, it's something which has got to be fought for across the board. So this is happening now. And it's just to let people know if they didn't know already. I was thinking of raising it instead of the migrant workers session, or the immigration, the attacks on refugees, fighting these attacks session. But I thought, because it's trade unions, that's why I thought I'd mention it here. That's just letting you know. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julie. Okay, I had the great pleasure to speak briefly to Mr. David Denny from Barbados before the session starts. So I'm going to take him now. And then I'm going to take some speakers from over that side of the room. And then I'm going to take some speakers from, there's loads of people with their hands up, right? So I'm doing my best.
Thank you, my brother. I'll be very short. I just want to join with our brother, who's president of the Caribbean Labour Solidarity, to raise the issue of reparation and to encourage the British Labour movement to stand in solidarity with the Caribbean region as it relates to reparation, because a number of our ancestors have suffered from slavery, and a number of communities in the Caribbean are still suffering from slavery up to this present moment. And I want to say to you that the labor movement can play a major role in helping us to fight a battle for reparation, so that we can demand reparation from the Church of England, the banks that benefited from slavery, the royal family that benefited from slavery, the government of the UK that benefited from slavery, and our number one struggle, Richard Racks, who have also benefited from slavery. That's my statement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so speakers on this side here. So then, did you want to say something? You had your hand up earlier. And then I'm going to go to the lady there with the beret on and see some, and then the lady behind her with the Palestine, is that a Palestine scarf? But yes.
Fantastic workshop. I'm from the NEU, the Black Members section. I represent Black Members' voices. And as other educators have said, as educators, we have a duty of care. And I know, I'm thinking back in coming from Jamaica as a Jamaican teacher, and what's going on with Jamaican teachers today in terms of how they have been treated in this classroom. And that's something that is, as a trade unionist, we have to think about overseas trained teachers, overseas workers, and the treatment in this country. It's appalling, you know, and they're asking. We had 500 teachers came over from Jamaica last year to teach in this country, and the situation is really dire. And I'm just asking for us to, a wider campaign. When we look at how immigrants have been treated in this country, Labour got to do better. And as an educator, looking at the school, the curriculum need to be reformed. We have the government review now. The deadline is the 22nd of November. Please go online and say to the government, this is what we want to see. We want the children, the diverse group, to see themselves in the curriculum, reflected, their voices, the community, the festivals, the multicultural festivals, not only for Black History Month, but all year round. All year round. So please, solidarity to all. If you're not a part of a union, get involved. So I'm from the NEU. Thank you.
Thank you. Just standing up, that's the one. Oh, then I'll look for hands over here in a little while's time, so.
Good afternoon. My name is Ruth Levy. I'm Chair of Watford Trades Council and I'm also a member of the NEU, Hertfordshire branch. And I'm proud to say, Kevin, you were also my General Secretary. That's right. Absolutely. I want to start by saying that we need to be really clear about this. These fascists and the far right, they are coming for us. Make no bones about that. We know that Reform have got 5 MPs and alarmingly, 3 of those, over half, are in the region where I live. I'm from Hertfordshire. I live in Hertfordshire, but Hertfordshire is geographically placed within the eastern region. And we have workers there who work at Felixstowe and Harwich on the docks. I was wondering what the panel or fellow comrades thought about how we actually get those people on board, because alarmingly, even in workplaces in that region where there are reps, they have been known to refuse communications from trade unions such as Unites, unfortunately. So we need to be really clear about what's going on there and how we can combat that. Thank you.
I'll just say Siobahn will come back on that at the end. Unite organising that doc. So the woman with the scarf there, standing up. And then I'm coming to this side, starting with this guy down the front and then you.
Hi, I'm Sam from Cardiff and Unison. At the moment, we're really struggling to engage the trade unions and the TUC to like financially support us getting to different events. We had lots of empty promises made for the 26th of October, and actually the NEU were the only union that gave any money at all. Even though Wales TUC said they were going to support, Unison said they were going to support. We're winning the arguments in meetings, we're doing the work. I sit on different committees, but like they're not delivering when it comes to like the financial promises. And that meant that we sent from Cardiff, we only sent one coach and 1 minibus, when we could have easily filled 4 or 5 coaches. And members from Stand Up to Racism, myself included, like I gave £500. I've got that back now, but other people, like they're still waiting for their £700 back for the coach because the unions did not deliver. And I just wondered if anyone had any ideas on how we can hold the unions accountable for that financial promises without sort of alienating them from wanting to support us in the future and thinking we're going to badger them. So if anyone has any ideas, please reach out.
That's a good balance to strike. Thank you very much. The gentleman down the front here.
I come long time ago, 44 years ago. I came from Uganda as a trainee and started at Ruskin College Oxford University. But what I have understood ever since I left the area is that you don't learn other people's history. Because we Black people are seen as monkeys, but everything known in this world has come from Black Africa. The first government anywhere in empire that was Egypt. The pyramids you see that are built there and all the things, the technology they had and all the things, has not even attended at the present time. And we try to say that, look, we talk about human rights, of which Britain is an example of Magna Carta, of which workers, peasants, revolt actually, which was there, that we must not use education in terms of public school boys who go adventurous and all that in Africa, to undermine the people's intelligence, and they bring it back here as novels or something like this. King Solomon's mind, if you remember that. And it becomes very difficult for to even suggest that Zimbabwe rules were not by African Shona people who built it and all. It was wrong, and that is written. It's accepted by people who do not interpret. The teachers who don't interpret, but they look at Black people as monkeys and all these things. But scientifically, we know archaeology says that the first person in this world was Turkana, Kenya, and Ngorongoro, Tanzania, and southern Ethiopia. That's Eden in the archaeology, the Eden of the world. And we must try and talk about African personality, and we teach, but as Professor Olterode wrote how Europe undeveloped Africa. We must teach the children how to know how Europe understood today. We are still suffering, and the part of justice has not been accepted because we don't know the money perhaps. We don't need the money perhaps, but we need psychological fair so that we are equal in front of the law, in front of the law, in front of anywhere else. And we must be able to define ourselves. Nobody should be able to define us. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Kudzia's had to leave. She's got childcare, and we've had to rearrange the conference, so she's had to leave. So but we're all grateful for her contribution. The gentleman here, then the woman there, and oh no, I'll go from you to the woman behind you, and then come back over here. So
First time I've
two
been called a
speakers here.
gentleman.
Yeah.
I'm Craig from the NEU. The comrade left, but I would urge you not to waste your time with the Labour Party. I've been there. Don't waste your time. If I lived in Islington North, I would not be voting Labour, but I lived in Hackney North, I would be voting for Labour for Diane. So do not waste your time with the Labour Party. When they suspend people that vote for the two-child cap, no, against the two-child cap, but then leave people like the old leader of Redbridge Council, who is Parliament's biggest slum landlord. That says all about the direction of the Labour Party. Also, I would also think about unemployment leads to despair and people going to the far right. And I'm a bit concerned about some of Unite's talk. I mean, I love Sharon Gray, but some of the stuff around environmental changes and what's happening in Scotland. And I would urge that transition to make sure that the workers are being included in that, because that's a real issue. And also in GMB.
Okay, thank you. And just pass the mic behind you. We're looking for ideas about how we can take the struggle forward in our workplace, all sorts of ideas about how to do that, and over to you.
This week, the Unison branch secretary in Camden and on the NEC. And I just wanted to say about a couple of things that we've done in work, actually, that hopefully are ideas that people might find interesting. Because when the far right attacked in August, I went into work on the Monday and thought we have to do something. And actually what we did was got a load of badges from Stand Up to Racism, bullied them until they gave us the draft of what was then unreleased open statement so that we could use it as a petition, and threw up a stall in the main council building and got hundreds of people queuing to sign the statement, ran out of badges before the lunch hour had finished, and have kept on doing that kind of thing since then as well. And it makes such a difference when you walk around your workplace and there's people wearing Stand Up to Racism badges, and it makes a difference with public sector, council. It makes a difference to the people who come, who are service users, who they walk into the building, they see somebody wearing a Stand Up to Racism badge as well. It undercuts those arguments about who's taking the jobs and the homes and all the rest of it. That made a huge difference in the really short term as well. But we also made sure that we had union meetings where we discussed what was happening, and we discussed what our response was to it, and we discussed the politics around it. Somebody said in the first session that we judge people by their actions. The MP for our area, where our branches is Keir Starmer, who went off to shake hands with Georgia Meloni. So we had a discussion about why would a Labour Prime Minister be doing that, and all the rest of it, that makes people more confident in their arguments as well. Our branch has long taken fighting racism seriously. We host an event at our National Union Conference, and we've raised over £20,000 for Stand Up to Racism by doing that, just from our one little branch. People in other unions should think about how they can do that. We're also looking at what we can do about bringing services in-house, because this privatisation is wrong on every level, but actually look at your privatised workforce. They are lower paid, they work longer hours, and they are blacker than the in-house workforces. And if you're serious about tackling racism in an organisation, you don't just look at who gets promotion at the top, which is what our managers always want to do. You look at who's left at the bottom and what you can do to fight that as well. And the very last thing is our branch is bigger than it was a year ago, actually, quite significantly bigger and younger. And you ask people why they've joined, and they say it's three things. It's because we fight over pay, we've spoken out about Palestine, and we fight racism. And that's made a real difference to our branch as well. Thanks.
Okay, look, I'm not going to be able to take everyone that's showing their hands, but I've got 4 people, I want them to speak for 30 seconds each. Can you do that? Or a minute maximum? So the lady in blue, then the lady here, then you, sir, and then the woman at the back with the hand up.
Hi there. I'm from Canada. I'm president of the United Steelworkers Local in Toronto, and we represent about
Very welcome
14,000.
here.
And I'm very excited to be here. A couple of us have come over, and I just want to say, when I heard what was being done, E.G. Mittal and et cetera, and that the education that's being done, because United Steelworkers in the United States, United Auto Workers, Teamsters, majority of the members voted for Trump, and this is a reality because I'm in an international union. Not as bad as in Canada, but we realized that for a while. And what we have been doing has been trying, at least in Toronto where we're located, every weekend, every Saturday, we're offering a $50 honorarium for rank and file, not the activists, not the stewards, the rank and files to come out, learn about your union. And a big piece of that is politics, what the right is saying, what the far right is saying, and just taking it down step by step by step, that they're not in your interest. This is not what it's all about. We're having huge success there. And what we're doing now is we have lunch breaks for a half hour. We're having these modules where we can get in, and we can get into many of our plants and doing these same things right there. We're going to the workers who don't normally come out to their union meetings, who aren't the activists. And this is where we've got to fight. And this is where we're doing it. And we're finding the same type of statistics. Once the education is there, once you talk to the ordinary worker, these are racialized workers, white workers, we know it makes a huge difference and the ideas change. And I want to just say this, 39% of white workers in the United States, white people, men, I will say this again, only 39% of white men in the United States voted against Trump. That is a horrifying fact. We know what it means, and we're taking it on right in the workplaces, and we're having success.
Thank you very much. Reaching out to workers. Pass the mic down here. 1 minute. 1 minute. Is that all right? Well, that's the world. This reality. 1 minute.
All right, okay. I work in the college in Hackney for years and years and years. We've developed this absolutely brilliant kind of anti-racist. It is an active anti-racist culture in our college. This year, every year, one of the teachers organises this Black History Conference that is organised like 15 kind of different speakers and so on, people from across the country and so on. This year, we've been taken over by a disgusting corporation called New City College. We are on strike, by the way. We've already had 3 days of strike over all kinds of issues like workload and pay. But the thing that is really jarring, like I said, okay, we have a really brilliant anti-racist tradition in our college. It's been built by the union. Our union group is anti-racist. Last weekend, there was a Black History Conference that's always been held at our college. 2 days before the conference, it was pulled. The college cancelled a Black History Conference. One of the main speakers was Gus John, who was the ex-head of education in Hackney. Absolutely shocking. We are saying it's blatant racism. But do you know what? Our trade union group, they know it's racist. Our trade union group is an anti-racist trade union group. I think that's the most important thing. They see it as a trade union issue on top of all the issues like workload and pay rise and so on. We are going out again on strike this week. That is a major feature of not why we're on strike, but it's certainly a major feature that overhangs everything that we're doing. So anyway.
We're going to go to Zach, but let me just say, I was on Julie's picket line this week. I'll be there again Wednesday. Send them a message of support. david.davies@neu.org.uk. Over to you, Zach.
Thanks, Kevin. I'm Zach. I'm a Unite rep at St Mungo's, and I organise We Love Music, Hate Racism. I wanted to say, with Ameen and others, I completely agree. I was really proud, actually, on the 26th of October. I was stood in June on a demonstration of 200 against the far right, 200 people against 5,000. So I think it's amazing we got 20,000 people. But I want to say, I'm not being complacent. Siobhan's right to say that we're uniquely placed to build in our workplaces. But if we look at the right at the moment, they're uniquely placed. Elon Musk, one of the biggest social networking platforms in the world, they're uniquely placed to spread hate. But the thing is, when we organise, the social weight we organise, which we saw on that demonstration, when we organise, we are uniquely placed to actually push and address some of the structural racist issues as well. It's not just a question of the far right. When we push and argue against Tommy Robinson's, we are building workplace organisations that can then take up the question of racism in our own workplace. In my own organisation, if you're black, you're disproportionately likely to be facing a disciplinary at the moment. Actually, when we organise against Tommy Robinson, against the fascists, we make the cases that there's racism in our own organisation that we need to confront our bosses as well. So it is
Thanks very much, Zach.
we've got to be doing over the next period.
That's a great point. Just pass the mic back, Zach. If it goes back 3 people, then we get to the And can we have a minute from
Well,
you,
they said
please?
the first shall be the last.
Yeah.
Greetings. My name is Sister Marcia and I'm part of Global African Congress. On Sundays, we have a Sunday International Solidarity where we talk about racism. Now, my question is for everyone here. As trade union, don't you think you should be more in Parliament, getting your members in Parliament so you can stand up to all the racism that's going on at the moment? Thank you.
Look, it's representation in Parliament. It's a big question. Thank you very much. Right. I'm sorry to all the people I couldn't take from the floor. We're going to come back to Siobahn and Ameen for about 2 minutes each. Then I've got a few notices and then we're off. So, Siobahn.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for all your contributions. I know how much work is going on out there and how many of our activists are like absolutely determined to stand up to racism, and we absolutely have no doubt that there are challenges ahead of us, immediate but also long term. I think there's been some important issues raised about resources, and that absolutely is an issue for us. There is a model motion I think that you can put through your branch. I think that we need to be challenging all of our unions to put resource within their own organisations, but then also to those organisations such as Stand Up to Racism, so that we can be ready. I feel your pain over that money for the buses, right? I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. We can't let that happen again. I think we need to ensure that, you know, we've got resource there, we've got organisation there, and we're able to do it. But I will come back to the point that challenging racism is about challenging racism within our own workplaces and when we already organise within our own branches. And I promise you, sister, we are absolutely taking our Unity over Division programme to Felixstowe Docks, but their employer decided to fire and rehire them not so long ago, and reorganised industrial action in Felixstowe Docks. And when you see the bosses being able to attack workers, that's where you will see the fear that breeds racism. So we absolutely need to tackle that as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean,
Clearly, it's right for trade unions to campaign against the winter fuel allowance being cut, or for the 2-child benefit cap. But it's just as important for them to fight and dismantle the hostile environment that continues to exist. Safe routes for refugees, reparations, justice for the Windrush victims, getting rid of Prevent. These are things that every union branch should be campaigning on now and fighting this government and saying, we don't want a continuation of the hostile environment, we want it to end. Stop feeding the right, stop talking about deportations and stopping boats, and start listening to actually black and white activists that are fighting for a better world and against racism. The second thing that we have to do, I think it's a Stand Up to Racism and the trade union movement, is we have to say that Reform is a racist, Islamophobic party, and we're going to campaign up and down the country to stop them getting elected. They got 20% virtually every seat in the Northwest. They're poised to win seats in the May elections. If we don't start to mobilise en masse against them now, and that's a real threat for all of us, unless we stand together, united. We've done this before. We've beaten back the far right before. We need to remind our workers of the lessons of how we did it, and we need to do it again now.
brilliant. Thank you very much. Just a couple of notices. The trades union network that's been mentioned, you can join. There's a QR code on lots of leaflets. You can affiliate your branch to Stand Up to Racism. That might get you some money from the branch as well. You can contact Stand Up to Racism for a list of branches in your area so that you can link your workplace group with a geographical group. There is a Stand Up to Racism Trades Union Conference on 8th of February. Trades unions just a part of the conference today. On the 8th of February, it's just trades unions. So do register for that. Diane Abbott's book launch is still on at 2:30, so you haven't got a lot of time to get a sandwich. Sorry, we've overrun. Sorry to everyone that didn't get called. Thank you for everyone that's made such fantastic contributions. Thank you very much.